There is a moment, right around age 60, when a man realizes the number in his retirement account was never actually his. It was a loan the system let him hold on to, under strict conditions, as long as he kept behaving exactly the way it needed him to behave. And the moment he stops behaving that way, the moment he tries to walk away with it, he finds out how much of it was actually his to begin with. Somewhere outside Pittsburgh, in the fall of 2008, a man named Carl Whitfield found out the answer was almost none of it. Carl was 59 years old. He had worked for the same steel fabrication company for 31 years. He drove the same truck for 11 of those years because it still ran, and a payment was a payment he refused to make twice. He had $211,000 sitting in a retirement account, built one contribution at a time, one missed vacation at a time, one Friday night at home instead of at a restaurant at a time. He did not check it every day, like some of the younger men in his department did. He trusted it. Every advisor, every pamphlet from Human Resources, every financial segment on the television had told him this was what discipline looked like. Put the money in. Let it grow. Do not touch it. Do not panic. In September of 2008, Carl watched that account lose $63,000 in 11 trading days. He did not do anything wrong. He did not make a single bad decision. He followed every instruction he had ever been given, exactly as it was written. And the machine took nearly a third of his life savings anyway, in less time than it takes to plant a garden. That is the injustice sitting underneath this entire story. And if you are anywhere near Carl's age right now, you already know it in your body before I even finish explaining it. The rules were never designed to protect the man who follows them. They were designed to protect the system that writes them. And the two are not the same thing. They were never the same thing. You were just never given a reason to check. This is not a story about the 2008 crash. Plenty of channels have already told you that story, and most of them told it wrong because they told it as a tragedy that happened to Carl. It was not a tragedy. It was an outcome. It was the predictable result of a machine built decades earlier, doing exactly what it was built to do, to a man who had done everything right. And it is still doing it. To you, right now. While you read your statement and tell yourself, the market always comes back. Let me take you back further than the crash itself, because the crash was not the trap. The crash was just the day the trap finally sprang shut on a lot of men like Carl at the same time. In the early 1980s, a change moved quietly through American retirement law that most working men never noticed, because it was written in the dry, bloodless language lawyers use specifically so that working men will not notice it. Before that change, a large share of American workers retired on something called a defined benefit pension. It was not complicated. Your employer promised you a fixed monthly check for the rest of your life, calculated off your years of service and your salary. The risk sat with the company. If the stock market had a terrible decade, that was the company's problem to solve, not yours. You knew 20 years out, almost to the dollar, what your retirement would look like. Then came a shift towards something called the defined contribution plan, the 401k, and it was marketed to you as freedom, control, ownership. You get to choose your investments now. You get to watch it grow. Nobody tells you what to do with your own money anymore. What it actually did was move the risk, all of it, off the company's books and onto yours. The company no longer had to guarantee anything. It only had to offer you a menu and a match if you were lucky. And then the outcome, good or catastrophic, belonged entirely to you. If the market surged, the company took no credit and owed you nothing extra. If the market collapsed 11 days before you planned to retire, the company owed you nothing either. The risk had been fully and quietly transferred. The men signing up for these new plans in 1982 were told they were gaining independence when what they were actually gaining was exposure. Exposure to a system they did not build, could not audit, and were never given the tools to fully understand. Here is why that matters to you sitting here right now, whether you are still working or already counting down the years. That transfer of risk from institution to individual did not stop with pensions. It became the blueprint. It is the same blueprint behind your health insurance deductible climbing every single year while your employer's contribution stays flat. It is the same blueprint behind the shift from company loyalty to at-will employment, where 30 years of performance reviews can be erased with one severance letter and a cardboard box. The system learned in the 1980s that it is far more profitable to hand a man the illusion of control, while keeping every actual lever for itself. And it has been running that exact play, dressed in a new decade's clothing, ever since. The mechanism is identical today. Only the names have changed. Carl did not lose $63,000 because he made a bad bet. He lost it because 30 years earlier, a decision was made in a boardroom he never sat in that his retirement would ride entirely on a market he had no seat at the table to influence and no real say in regulating. He was handed the wheel of a car with no brakes and told to feel proud that he finally got to drive. Now, let me show you the machine itself, because once you see how it actually works, you will never look at your own statement the same way again. Picture your retirement account, your mortgage, your credit score, your monthly minimum payments, not as separate things, but as one single instrument. A machine with exactly one design goal: keep you connected, keep you leveraged, keep you needing it. A man with a mortgage needs the bank to keep approving him. A man with a credit card balance needs the lender to keep extending terms. A man with his retirement fully inside the market needs the market to keep cooperating. Every single point of connection is a point of control, and the machine does not care whether that control benefits you. It only cares that the connection stays live. This is not a conspiracy. Nobody needs to meet in a back room and plan it. It is simply engineering. A system built by people who profit when you stay leveraged will naturally produce more leverage, the same way a river naturally runs downhill. No malice required, just incentive, repeated for decades, until it hardens into something that looks like the natural order of things. And here is where a second man enters this story, because Carl's situation, on his own, could still be dismissed as bad timing. One man, one bad decade. But the machine does not care whether you have too little debt or too much. It only cares that you are connected to it somehow, so it built failure points on both ends. Meet a man named Roland Askew. Roland did the opposite of what Carl did, and the system punished him for that too. Roland believed in the institution completely. He carried a mortgage he refinanced twice to lower his rate, exactly as his bank recommended. He carried a modest revolving balance he paid down responsibly every month, exactly as his credit counselor recommended. He kept 6 months of expenses in a savings account at the same regional bank that held his mortgage, because a loan officer once told him that keeping everything under one roof made him a stronger, more trusted customer. Roland was not reckless. Roland was compliant. He did exactly what every institution asked of him, and he trusted that this compliance would be rewarded with stability. In the spring of 2009, that regional bank failed, not through any fault of Roland's, through decisions made by executives he had never met. The goal was to need it less. And this is where something interesting happens, something almost nobody explains correctly. The less a man needs from this machine, the more authority he seems to carry in every room he walks into, and that is not a coincidence. It is not charisma. It is not some social trick. Here's the part they don't tell you. The reason a certain kind of man commands a room without raising his voice is not because of manners. It is because of math. Think about the calmest man you have ever met. The one who never seemed rattled by a bad quarter, a rude waiter, a canceled flight, an unreasonable boss. You probably assumed that was personality. It was not personality. It was arithmetic. A man who owes nothing to anyone does not flinch when a lender raises a rate, because no lender has leverage over him. A man who is not depending on his employer's next performance review to make his mortgage payment does not perform nervous loyalty in a meeting because he does not need to. Composure is not a mood. Composure is what happens automatically when nobody in the room has any leverage over you. Presence is not something you practice in a mirror. It is the physical residue of having nothing left for anyone to threaten. That is the code your father's generation understood without ever having to say it out loud. A man who commanded a room in 1960 did not do it with volume. He did it because he had already arranged his life so that the room could not touch him. And then, over about 15 years, beginning quietly in the early 1960s and accelerating through the credit expansion of the following 2 decades, that arrangement was made to look old-fashioned. Frugality got rebranded as small thinking. Debt got rebranded as confidence. An entire generation of men were sold the idea that leverage was sophistication right at the exact moment. Leverage became the machine's single most effective point of control. It was not an accident that the code eroded. It eroded because a man who needed nothing was a man who could not be sold anything. And that has never been good for business. So look again at Carl and look again at Roland, because I want you to see them differently now than you did at the start of this. Carl still works. He is 63 now. He rebuilt slower than he would have liked, but he rebuilt on his own terms this time, with almost no debt attached to any part of his life, and a retirement structure spread across accounts no single headline can touch all at once. People who meet him now describe him the same way people describe the quiet, unshakable men of an older generation. Steady, composed, hard to read, and somehow easy to trust anyway. Nobody in the room realizes that steadiness is not a personality trait. It is the direct output of a man who arranged his life so that no single institution holds a leverage point over him anymore. Roland took longer. Trust does not rebuild the way a bank balance does. But he too eventually understood the lesson the hard way and moved toward the same minimum exposure Carl arrived at from the opposite direction. 2 men, 2 completely different roads into the same machine, arriving at the exact same conclusion about how to walk out of it. So here is the only real thing left to sit with, and it is not a financial thing, even though everything I have told you tonight was built from financial history. It is a thing about identity. The man fully leveraged and proud of it. The man fully trusting and proud of it. Or the man who simply needs nothing from the room and therefore cannot be moved by it. Choose minimum exposure. Choose quiet math over loud confidence. Choose the kind of composure nobody can explain, because nobody in the room can see the arithmetic underneath it. A man who needs nothing from you is the one man you cannot ignore.